So today we will move on to the next, topic, which is the remaining setups that we need to do. Okay, so what we are trying to do is why we are trying to create a financial reporting structure, or we can say the ledger. Now, these are all the preliminary setups that we are doing, which are required to create a ledger. So chart of account is completed. Okay, calendar is completed. Currency, anyways, we have the currencies available. Okay, convention, the method is also available as the standard accrual method. Now, the next step is there are certain other steps that we need to follow to have a preliminary setups to be done. Okay, now what are those other setups? Not the account hierarchy. Okay, these ones. Create primary ledger, specify ledger options. Okay, then create legal address, create legal entity, and then assign legal entity to primary ledger, assign balancing segment to LE, and then assign balancing segment values to the ledger, complete primary ledger definition. So these are the steps that we would be following next. Okay, now creating a primary ledger. Let me log in. So have you started looking at the videos? I think it was shared, right? Try to cover those videos as quickly as possible, because we are moving forward with our training. So if there is a bigger lag between you seeing the video and me taking the training, it would all mix up and it would result into a lot of confusions. Okay, so as much as possible, the same day itself, try to have a look at all the videos. But for that, whatever videos you have received and which you did not see earlier, try to complete it as soon as possible.
Okay.
Okay. Fine. Now, financials under, we have come to financials from the setup and maintenance. Okay. Where is the setup and maintenance here? Under settings and action, setup and maintenance. So it will take us to this page. Then we need to click on this drop down, which is for the offerings. Select financials, and you will have all the setup task related to financials. Okay. Now you need to select the or you need to search the task name called manage primary ledger. So this is the first task in creating a ledger. Okay. All right. So the new ledger that you want to create, okay, you can add from here, and then you will have to fill in all the details. Now, what are those details? Let us see. Okay, you will have to give the name of the ledger. What is the name of the ledger that you would provide? Then description of the ledger. Okay, then the chart of accounts that you want to associate. Okay, so it is the chart of account structure instance, okay, basically, which we are linking it, not the chart of account structure directly. So we have seen, right, in the setup, there are two parts. Chart of account structure is there, and then an extension of that is the structure instance. So basically, it is the structure instance that you associate or link to the ledger that you are creating. Okay, so you will have to select the chart of account structure instance. So all the instances that are created in this all the instances that are created in this environment, okay, in this dev environment is will be available. From that, whatever is yours, you will have to select. Okay. And then select the accounting calendar, then the currency and the accounting method. So accounting calendar, again, the one that you would have defined, okay, for your practice that you will have to use. And then currency. What is the currency in, or it is nothing but the reporting currency, okay? Basically, how you maintain your financials, that is the currency basically it is talking about. Okay, so there will be a base currency for your accounting, which is more or less your local currency. Okay, in which you would do the local reporting. Generally, it is that currency in which the books of accounts are maintained. Okay, so that you will have to select. So in this case, we are saying that we are the United States companies, and we are operating in United States. So that is where for this ledger we will have the currency as US dollar. Okay, so like that, whatever the cases, if you are taking a example of Indian entities, and as part of India you are creating this structure. I mean to say this reporting, you are saying that it is in INR, then you will have to select the currency as INR. Okay, so depending on that, you will have to create the case structure. Okay, and then select the currency, and then the accounting method you will have to select as standard accrual. Okay, select the standard accrual as your method of accounting. Okay, don't select any other. Okay, once you do that, you save and close. So your ledger would be created. So let me show you the ledger that I have created. Okay, so this is the ledger that I have created. ABC primary ledger. Description, the same name I have given. Chart of accounts, I have given the chart of account structure instance that you have seen. Okay, that this is the chart of account structure, that instance that I had created for my case. So I have associated that. Calendar is this calendar, A03 US account 13. So 13 stands for what? 13 stands for 13 periods. That means there will be 12 monthly periods and one adjusting period. Okay, that is my calendar. Okay, so the naming has been given in such a way that we can identify. Okay, then currency is the US dollar, because I want to maintain all my accounting data in US currency. That is dollar currency. Okay, so that is where I have selected US dollars as the currency. Okay, now there are some other things that you will see which was not available in the earlier screen. Okay, balance queue, average balance queue. So these are something which automatically system will create. Okay, at different stages. I will explain to you what the concept behind this is when we come to that part. Okay, right now you don't need to understand, because it will only confuse you. So at this point of time, just ignore these two columns. Okay, and status is what? Status is tick mark. So it is confirmed. That means confirmed means the entire configuration is complete. So this tick mark generally would appear as a green tick mark only when you have completed these steps, all these steps. Okay, until this complete primary ledger definition. Until that, only once you have completed, only at that point of time the status will come as green tick. That means the configuration is complete. Okay, but it when you create it for the first time, okay, there will be what? There will be a blue clock symbol. That means the configuration is still in progress. Okay, so you can see some of the examples here for the ledgers that are still in progress. That means the setup is incomplete. So you see here this one. So this is one of the ledgers someone else has created, for which the blue clock icon is there. That means it is still in progress. The setups are not yet complete. Okay. So that is where we have to perform all the remaining setups. So we will see next setup, that is the specify ledger option. So after you create a primary ledger, you will have to come. You will have certain one of the other setup called specify ledger options. Okay. So what are those? So let us see. or else let me go to okay. Let us see the specify ledger options later. Okay, I will push this to the end. Okay, this sheet I will share with you so that you can follow the steps. Okay. So once you have created the primary ledger, what you will do is next you will create the legal address because you need to configure some aspects related to the legal entities. Okay. So like the legal entity names that are involved. Okay. And then then the addresses associated to the legal entities, all those things you will have to create. Okay. And then you will have to finally assign it to the ledger that you have created, the primary ledger that you have created. Okay. So let us have a look at the first step in creation of the legal entity. So first step is to create first of all the legal addresses. Okay, so the address is nothing but the address where the legal entity is basically registered, with which the legal entity is registered. Okay, so that legal address we will have to provide. So let us see the legal address. Manage.
हाउ में गए ठीक है अल्लाह का शुक्र हाँ हाँ कहीं को वैसा कर रहे कहीं को वैसा पूछ रहे नहीं मैं वो तरकारी का चटना बता रही है मैनेज
Okay, so this is the task name. Manage legal addresses. It is part of the legal structure. Okay, so that is where you will have to define this. And then finally, there is a setup where you actually link ledger legal entity to the primary ledger. Okay, so that is where this is an important setup. So first we define the address. So in this address, once you clicked on that add, so this is the page. Okay, from the manage legal address, this is the page that will come up. Okay, now in that you will have to first add the address or create the address. Okay, so I will click on add, and country I will select as whatever country. So in our case, we are taking it as United States as the legal jurisdiction or the legal country where where our business is. So according to that, we are creating our ledgers and everything, right? So the United States country we have taken, address line we will put whatever address line 1, address line 2, city. Okay. City is not available, no issues. It is not a mandatory field. Okay, these are all people have created in a multiple way. Okay, Florida, let's say, and you can provide the other one aspects, and then you can click on OK. So that location will get created. Okay, you see here location, Florida, United States, and then country United States. That address or location is created. Now the next step would be to create the legal entity. Okay, creating the legal entity. So what is the task name for that? The task name is manage legal entity. Okay, manage legal entity. Just click on that. Okay, we'll say select create new. Okay, so how is it again? Let me go back. So manage legal entity. Okay, you will click on that. Okay, and then there is the select options. You will have to select the scope, but you first of all you need to create in order to be select the scope. That is where you will come to this section. Okay, click on the drop down and you will say create new because you want to create new entity. And then you click on apply and go to task. Okay, so now you see these are all the legal entities which are already created by many people. Okay, in your case, you can create your own entity by clicking on that add icon once you come to that page, and then this page will open, which will say create legal entity. Okay, country, you will have to select what is the country, United States, then provide the name. Okay, name of the legal entity. So it will be nothing but the legal entity name, which is registered as per the statutory requirements. Okay, so that name you will have to input. Okay, so let's say ABC Corp Logistics. Okay, INC. Let's say this is the legal entity with which it is registered. Okay, then legal identifier, legal entity identifier. So this is a unique ID. Okay, that needs to be provided in the system to have a unique record for this legal entity. Okay, so that legal entity identifier you can provide. So it can be any unique value. Okay, number value or anything that you would want this as a unique, unique identifier to be assigned to this legal entity that you can provide. Okay, let me say this, I am providing. Okay, and then you have these are tax numbers. So tax number is basically the tax number associated to this legal entity that you can provide. Now legal employer and payroll statutory unit, these are basically with respect to human capital management. Okay, setup. Now in human capital management, they will have to what, they will have to register one of the legal entity, which is, or all the legal entities that are basically legal employers, under which there will be employees, and under which the payroll will be processed. Okay, so in that case, those legal entities in HCM, basically they would enable these options: legal employer and associated to a payroll unit. Okay, just like in our case, we have business unit, right? Similarly, in the case of human capital application, there is specifically in case of payroll application, there is a payroll statutory unit, which is something you did that has to be assigned or linked to this legal entity. So this is just for your information. We don't need to enable it for our case. Okay. Also, this we don't need to enable. Okay, so we can provide these two information, the start and end date if you want to provide, but generally, we keep it as blank, just, not to restrict the use of this legal entity. Okay, now here under the registration information, okay, we will have to provide what, the legal address. Okay, so that legal address which we created, right, that legal address we can assign it. So simply click on the drop down and you can search. State I had given as Florida. So that I will search Florida, United States. And then I'll say, okay. So that legal address is associated. Now EIN or TIN number, and then legal reporting unit registration number. So these are fields which are opened based on the geography, okay, based on United States when we selected. Okay, now, so based on each geography, okay, there is based on the requirement on in those locations, there are some of them require registration number, some of them require TIN number. Similarly, in case of India, it would be some other case. Okay, like there might be PAN number, or for that matter, there might be a registration number. So those things we will have, which will appear, and then it has in turn has to be provided. Okay, so in here, what are the things appearing? Legal reporting unit registration number and the EIN or TIN number. Okay, so that can be provided. Right now, we can provide it as a dummy value. Okay, just to move ahead. Okay, just provide a dummy value, and then just understand what is the concept and provide a dummy value behind it or for that, and then save and close. Okay, so this is how you create a legal entity. Okay, for file, I'm actually taking you through the setups, these setups limited to the things that are required for financial configurations. Okay, but when it comes to different other aspects, there are a lot of things. Like if it comes to HCM, then there is legal entity HCM information that needs to be provided. Like that, many of those things are there. Okay, so but now for us to create the reporting structure, what is the bare minimum or the basic requirement with respect to legal entity that I have covered. Okay, like at creating an address and then creating the legal entity. Those things we have covered. Okay. Now the next step is to what? Assign legal entity to primary ledger. Okay. Assigning the legal entity to primary ledger. So simply you will search by the name. Okay. So this is the setup. Assign legal entities. So now you will have to select the scope. Okay. So because it is in the select mode, you will have to select the scope. So when you click on the scope, it will show you the primary ledger for which you want to basically against which you want to assign it. So this is the place where you can select and add or create new. But create new we don't need to do because new ledger we have already created. So this time we will have to select and add. So what I will do, I will select the ledger that has been created for me. Let's say in my case, it was ABC Corp. So that ledger I will select. I will search it from this place. This is the place to search. Okay. For the ones that are already created. So I searched it and then this has appeared and then I will say save and close. Select that and then save and close. Okay. So this page now for assigning legal entity to ABC Corp primary ledger now opens. Okay. So you see these are the ones which are already assigned. Okay. All these are the ones which are already assigned. Okay. So ABC Corp, INC, ABC Corp, FS, XYZ Corp, LE, these are all the legal entities which are already assigned. Now I had added one more, right? So what are those? What was that? ABC Corp, logistic. So I will enter that in the search tab, then click on search, and then this will appear. Select it and click on apply and done. So that will add or link the legal entity that we have created to the primary ledger that we have created for our case. Okay. So you see here legal entity identifier, then country, United States, and company value is no value. Okay. Why here in this case company value is no value? Because this is the first time we have added the legal entity. Now from the chart of accounts, okay, in the chart of account in the company segment, whatever is the value that needs to be associated to ABC Corp Logistics, that will have to be assigned in the next step. So for these cases, you are able to see the values already available. How? Because earlier when I had created it, I had first of all, I added the legal entities, and then in the next step, I assigned the legal entity to the respective balancing segment. Okay, based on the chart of account, which is added, which is linked to this ledger. Okay, so the same way we will do it for this also. Okay, so once you have linked the legal entity to the ledger, you will click on save and close. So what is it saying? You must assign a balancing segment value to legal entity ABC Incorporation, since one or more legal entity include a balancing segment value assigned. Okay, so it is saying that you need to assign a balancing segment value, okay, from the company segment to this particular legal entity. Okay, so the next step would be to do that. Okay, before that, let me do just one thing. Give me a moment.
Hello.
Yeah, just a second.
Here I have one question.
Mhm.
Initially, we created some ledgers, right? Ledgers, and even we have given some numbers also. I mean, some code, right?
Mhm.
Now we are creating primary ledger and legal entity.
Mm.
Earlier also we created a ledger. I mean, legal entities, right? That segments, segment 1 to 8,
Yeah, that
and
is
in the
to
under
that is to store the accounting information. Okay. So
accounting,
basically, there are two. Yeah, yeah. Please go ahead.
accounting information means like whatever transactions we are doing
Yes,
for the those things we created. So now we are assigning those ledgers to company account. I mean that legal entity and
yes, yes,
primary
yes,
ledger. Right?
yes.
So in Oracle, first we have to create accounting ledgers first. Then we have to assign some numbers. I mean
Yeah. Mm.
code. Then we have to create this company structure like primary ledger. How many entities are there in that under? How many
Yeah,
branches? Like that,
yeah.
right?
Yes, yes, yes. So,
Okay.
so this is how you will do it in your training. Okay, from a practical business point of in a practical implementation. Okay, what happens is the legal entities and everything generally is created by the human capital management team. Okay, because they are the ones who start with the implementation. Okay, so when they start with the implementation, they actually create all of these things, legal entities. Okay, not the primary ledger part, but legal entity, legal addresses, legal reporting, units, everything they would create. Okay, as per the statutory compliance, whatever they have to create. Okay, the companies and everything that they need to add it in the Oracle ERP, that they will add it. Okay, as part of their setups, and then we use that legal entity to link it to our primary ledger. That is how it happens. Okay, in an actual implementation. But right now we are following these steps. Why? Because we are not in an actual implementation, and there is no HCM team or the human capital team who will be doing the legal entity setup. So that is where we have to do the setup by ourselves. Okay,
Okay.
and then we are linking it to our primary ledger. Okay, I hope you understood the process how it happens.
Yeah, yeah. And one more thing,
Hmm.
even in real thing,
Mm-hmm.
real time software, if
Mm-hmm.
we created this legal entity, after
Yeah.
HCM people can modify those things,
Yes.
or how
Yes, they can.
they can they can do it, right?
Yes, they can. So basically, how it happens is the team which starts the implementation, okay, they are responsible to create the legal entities. Because this legal entities, as per the statutory requirement, whatever legal entity information is there, that needs to be registered in Oracle. And because that is going to be a common structure for all, right? All application basically will have the same common structure because it is under the same legal entity that all the operations are being carried out. So that is where it is kind of a one time setup that people that will be done, okay, by whichever team which starts the implementation. Generally it is the human capital management team that starts with the implementation, because they need to create employees, they need to create the basic configurations which are required. Okay, like the legal entity registration, okay, legal addresses, locations, all those things they have to create it. Okay, so that is where generally they create it first, and then the remaining teams, okay, like the finance team, similarly, the supply chain team or the other project teams, they would utilize those legal entity configuration in their respective setups. They will not create the legal entities again, because that is not logical. Okay, it is just one structure which is applicable for all. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. But when it comes to financial reporting structures, we use that information of the legal entity that is created, and then we link it to our primary ledgers and everything. Primary ledgers is something which we create because it is part of our financial configuration. Okay. And the chart of accounts we create. And then for the accounting purpose, whatever values that we created in our company segment for those legal entities, okay, we associate or we link, okay, it to the legal entity. We need to give an association, right? Otherwise, how will that link, or how will that relationship between the code and the legal entity record will get established, okay, in the ledger? So that is where we are going to link it in the next step. Okay, so primary ledger we have created. Okay, then we link what? We link when we link the legal entity to the primary ledger. Okay, these two steps are coming up. Why? Because we need to create it. We don't have any we are not in a real-time implementation, and therefore we need to create our own legal entities. That is why these two steps are included in between. Otherwise, if it would have been a real-life implementation, then first it will be create primary ledger, and the next step would be to assign the legal entity to the primary ledger. Okay, because these two things will have already been created. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is how the process goes. Okay. So after we create the primary ledger, our next task is to assign the legal entity to the primary ledger. So whichever legal entities are going to use this ledger, this books of accounts, those we will have to link it. And then the third step, we will have to link. Is my screen visible? Oh, my bad. Sorry. Okay, so the next, so create primary ledger, then assign the legal entity to the primary ledger, and the third step will be to link the legal entity to the company code that we have created in our chart of accounts. So basically, the company code in chart of account represents the accounting information for the legal entities. Okay, so that is what the linkage is. Okay, that is our next step. So we will see the next step. Let's say, what is the next step? Manage, or sorry, assign legal entity to balancing segments. See, assign balancing segment values to legal entities. This will be our next step. This one. So in that, our scope is already selected. So basically, what is the scope? Scope means basically for which, for what we need to work on. So in this case, it will be the ledger. Ledger will be the scope. So first you will have to select the scope as your ledger. Okay, let's say right now it is what, it is already the scope, which is our primary ledger. But let's say if it is not, if it is something else here, and you want to change the scope. So how will you change it? You will click on the value under the scope. Okay. And it will open this pop-up, and then in that you will in the primary ledger, this drop down is there. You will click on that drop down, and then you will say select and add. Okay, and then you will say apply and go to task, and you will have to search for your ledger. Okay, so let us say if it is this is your ledger, let's say hashtag action US primary ledger, then you will have to select that, and then you will have to click on save and close. Okay, so your ledger will be selected, and then you will have to, the scope will be selected as your ledger, and then you can perform all the actions accordingly. Okay, so now for my case, which is for ABC Corp, I will first of all change the scope, because I want to add it to what? ABC Corp, the legal entities, whatever was there, I want to add the balancing segment value to those legal entities for my ledger. So the scope is my ledger. So now I will change it to the The scope, I will change it to ABC Corp. Okay, how do I do that? I'll click on the scope section. I'll go to primary ledger. Since the list is already available, I can select it, or I can say select and add, apply, go to task, and then I will search for my primary ledger. Select it and save and close. Okay, so now this page has opened up. Assign balancing segment values to legal entities for which ledger? ABC Corp primary ledger. Okay, so you see the ledger details. What is the value set? ABC chart of account company value set. So this is the company value set. Okay, why? How is it system able to identify that this is the value set that needs to be picked? Any wild guesses?
I think initially we created this value set, right?
Yeah, but why did not system pick any other value set, only this value set, company value set? How was system able to identify it is the company value set that they need to pick to
Yeah, I
assign?
understand. No idea.
It is based on the primary balancing segment label which we had assigned to the chart of accounts when we were creating the chart of accounts, right? Structure. When we were creating the chart of account structure, and then we created the company segment, and on the company segment we had assigned a label, right? What was that label? Primary balancing segment.
Okay.
Okay, based on that, and then in turn that chart of account structure we assigned it to what? Our ABC Corp primary ledger in the earlier step when we created it. So that linkage, so first the ledger, it got selected in the scope, we selected the ledger, and then based on the ledger, the chart of account structure was selected, and based on the chart of accounts for that, whatever had the primary balancing as the label, that value set got selected. So that is how the linkage is established, and that is how system was able to identify what is the value set it needs to pick to fetch the values. Okay, which you in turn you will be assigning to the legal entities. Okay, for your legal entities that you want to link. Okay, so in our case, now in the earlier step we had linked the legal entity ABC Corp to this primary ledger, right? To ABC Corp. Now we need to associate a company code to this legal entity. That is what the task is: assign balancing segment values to the legal entity. So if you look at the other legal entities, ABC Corp FS, this is one of the legal entity that was created and linked to ABC Corp primary ledger. Okay, then we came to this particular task and associated 200. Okay, 200 is the value that was created in the value set, ABC Corp company value set. In that 200 was the code that was created for ABC Corp financial services. So that code we linked it to the legal entity. Okay, similarly for ABC Incorporation legal entity, we linked 100 code from the value set, company value set. Okay, similarly XYZ Corp, for that 201 was the balancing segment value that was linked. Now for ABC Corp, we will link, okay, the value, the company segment value. So how do we do that? First of all, select the legal entity, then click on add. Okay, now you need to, this dialog, this particular box will open. So legal entity name is available and company value I will select from the drop down. So what is the value available to select? 301. And 301 was actually created for ABC Corp Logistics Incorporation. So if you let me open a new, and I will show you the value set that has all these values. The financials. Where is the values stored? Manage, chart of account, value, set. Right? That is where the values are stored. Okay, and then you can search for your company, or directly you can search with the prefix. So this is the company value set, right? So I'll click on manage values, click on search. So you see these are all the values which are available. Okay, so basically I had created it. Okay, so basic thing is that you need to have a structure in mind. What are the legal entities that needs to be created, and according to that, beforehand you need to have the values also populated in the value sets. Okay, so that is how the design thing works. Okay, so for 301, 301 was the code which which the business said should be used for ABC Corp Logistics Incorporation. So that is how that value was already created in the chart of account setup. Okay, and then now when we are creating the legal entities, after that we assign this value that was supposed to be used for that legal entity in this setup. Okay, we are linking it. Okay, and then I'll say save and close. Okay, so that is how I have associated the chart of account company code that belongs to ABC Corp Logistics Incorporation to the legal entity that we have assigned to our primary ledger. Okay, so that is the linkage. Then I'll save and close. So this setup is done. Okay, let me go back and refresh it. Okay, so that setup is basically complete. So what are the setups that we have done? Creation of a primary ledger we have done. Okay, then legal entity and legal address, legal entity and legal address we had to create because we don't have any, implementation cycle where it will already be created by some other team. So that is why we had to create it. Okay, then we followed the next step, that is to assign the legal entity to the primary ledger. So I hope now you understand how we should first of all select the scope when you go to that task. Okay, select your primary ledger that you created in step number 9. Okay, as your scope of work, and then you assign the legal entities that you have created to that primary ledger. So that linkage you are establishing in this step. Okay, then what comes is the next thing is, so first step you have associated it to the primary ledger, but then in the next step you will even have to associate it to your chart of accounts, the company segment. Okay, so that is where assign balancing segment values to the legal entity. So balancing segment value is nothing but your company segment values to the legal entity that you will have to do. So whatever value is designated in the chart of account for that particular legal entity, that needs to be assigned to the legal entity in this particular setup. Assign balancing segment values to legal entity. Okay, this thing we will understand later. Assign balancing segment to the ledger, that we will understand later. Okay, then comes the part of specifying the ledger options. Okay, so I think I will not take it today because we are going to cover our time for today. So tomorrow we will take up specify ledger options, and then we will complete our primary ledger definition. Okay, so for these things to do, okay, you need to have a specific structure in your mind. Okay, that means a specific structure which you can follow throughout the setups. So that is where, first of all, what you will have to do is in your worksheet, okay, in an Excel worksheet, you will have to first of all design a sample, structure. Okay, so what will be that structure that you will design? So from a company perspective, first of all, that enterprise structure thing, right, that we had, that diagram you will have to first decide or design for yourself, for your example. So in my case, I will jot down the structure that I had in mind, and then based on which I had started the setups. So what is that? I followed the same structure of the enterprise structure. Okay, so in enterprise, I tagged, so what was it? ABC Corp in enterprise, or ABC Corp group, let's say. That is my enterprise. Okay, then under that, what are the companies, or you can say the legal entities? It will be ABC Corp INC. Then I had the legal entity ABC Corp, FS, that stands for Financial Services. Incorporation. Then I had ABC Corp Logistics. Okay. Then I had ABC Corp, sorry, XYZ Corp LE. So this is the legal entities that I had in mind under the ABC Corp. ABC Corp group, okay, which is my enterprise. Then the legal entities. Now
So
from
here,
yes, please.
so here ABC Corp is the primary ledger.
ABC Corp group is, so first of all, I'm just designing the structure.
Yeah.
So basically, I need to have some structure in mind in order to be able to go about with the setups, right? So definitely in a real life business, you will have all these structures. That is the enterprise structure, and then simultaneously you will have a financial reporting structure that you will have to design. So based on this, these are the legal entities, okay, and all of them are now, let's say, in the same country, which are following the same currency and the chart of account. So basically, in that case, we are saying for all of them there will be one primary ledger. Okay, so for all these entities, there will be one primary ledger that is being maintained. Now, what are the codes that we need to associate in the chart of accounts? So for ABC Corp Incorporation, it will be 100. In the chart of account, the balancing segment value. Okay, then for financial services, it will be 200. For ABC Corp Logistic, it will be 300. And for XYZ Corp, it will be 400, let's say. Okay, so these are the codings that will be used in the company segment for associating with the legal entities. Okay, so this is how the structure is there. Then the remaining part, like, the natural account, everything that you will have to define as part of your chart of account. But for the company structure, these and the company value set, these are the things that you will have to keep into mind, or into consideration, take into consideration, and then go about with the setups. Okay, so like this, you can decide first of all the organization or the enterprise structure, and then you can start with your chart of account setup, the primary ledger, and all those things you can start. Okay, so just prepare this for your case and then start working. So then you will be able to go in